Thank you, Liz, and thank you for the opportunity, and to Rosemary and her team for the effort that's gone into this enterprise. Now, Liz suggested that there was a theme developing. I'm sorry to break that record. And this is the second conference I've spoken at today, so I hope I won't get my notes mixed up. So, reform of the gas market is, in common with initiatives in other parts of the energy supply chain, directed at putting downward pressure in prices by ensuring that gas is delivered to where it's valued most, at the right time, and at a price that reflects the outcomes that one would expect from a workably competitive market. Now, this topic may seem to be a little bit remote to the theme of system affordability constraint, but this is one of the serious set of initiatives to put downward pressure on prices of gas, even though gas transmission is only one part of the cost drivers for the affordability of gas. During 2016, reports by the ACCC and the AEMC were delivered to the COAG Energy Council and led to a broad-ranging program of reform for the gas markets and for the creation, as Liz said, of the Gas Market Reform Group, of which I'm the chair, which was charged with the responsibility for delivering that set of reforms. We're a small group. We weren't there to make policy. We were there to take what the Energy Council had determined and get it in place as expeditiously and as effectively as possible. The ACCC report found that while pipeline operators had responded well to changes underway in the market, there was evidence that a large number were engaging in monopoly pricing, and the ability of pipeline operators to engage in monopoly pricing was not being constrained by the threat of regulation. The ACCC also found that information asymmetries were limiting the ability of users to readily identify any such exercises of market power and to negotiate effectively with pipeline operators. The ACCC recommended that measures be taken to address these issues. The AEMC review, to which John referred to a moment ago, related to market operation and contained recommendations that were designed to foster a more liquid secondary market and to improve the efficiency with which capacity is allocated and used on transportation assets. So collectively we had lack of effective process for access seekers, the exercise of market power in establishing prices and terms and conditions for the purchase of gas, and the lack of efficient use of existing pipeline service infrastructure, all of which, in both the short term and the longer term, are going to have an impact on prices. So Energy Council initiated the processes to address these issues, which GMRG is responsible for the developing, implementing the initiatives to address the issues. And that falls into two broad areas: an information disclosure and arbitration framework to address access and market power issues, and a capacity trading reform package to assist capacity trading market development to address issues related to the efficiency of the use of infrastructure. Now, I could bore you to tears for hours in describing those in detail, but what I'd like to do is just talk a little bit about what is in each of those initiatives. The objective of the information disclosure and arbitration framework is to facilitate access on reasonable terms to the services provided by non-scheme pipelines, which is taken to mean at prices and terms and conditions that, as far as practical, reflect the outcomes of a workably competitive market. The framework provides for a staged approach to information disclosure, negotiation and arbitration. The stages are intended to provide parties with greater clarity about their obligations in each stage, incentivise parties to negotiate, and limit the reliance that may otherwise be placed on arbitration. Stage 1 provides for the upfront publication of information, and that's to address the asymmetries that are found. And frankly, parties seeking gas found they were almost powerless because of the lack of information. So let me give you a description of the information that's now required. For each individual pipeline, operators on their website must disclose pipeline information, including technical and physical details, information about the services offered, information about service usage, information about service availability, the standing terms and pricing methodology for each pipeline service offered, the pipeline financial performance, including revenues, expenses, assets, financial performance metrics, and the value of the pipeline calculated using the recovered capital method, and the weighted average prices paid by users for pipeline services. Now, this is a very significant change in the amount of information that is available to access seekers. Stage 2 involves a well-defined access request and negotiation process, which has been designed to facilitate more timely and effective negotiations by providing users with greater clarity about the process for making an access request, the time periods within which pipeline operators must respond, and their ability to seek additional information from the pipeline operator during the negotiation phase. Stage 3 provides for a commercially oriented arbitration mechanism, which has been designed to provide a credible threat of arbitration to constrain the exercise of market power during negotiations, while also providing for the cost-effective and efficient resolution of disputes if the mechanism is triggered. The expeditious bit is arbitrations are required to be completed within 50 days. However, that can be extended to 90 days by agreement of the parties, or if the arbitrator requires expert assistance. Now, so that's an outline, if you like, of the arbitration and the information disclosure part of our work. The second part is the design of a capacity trading package, the objective of which is to foster a more liquid capacity market and improve the efficiency with which capacity is allocated and used on transportation assets operating under the contract carriage model. The package has got a series of initiatives in it, and it applies to transmission pipelines and compression services. So those components are a capacity trading platform which shippers can use to trade secondary capacity, and this will provide for exchange trading of common products and a listing service for other products. The second element is a day-ahead auction of contracted but unnominated capacity, which will be conducted shortly after the nomination cut-off and subject to a reserve price of $0. Now, these two work together. The capacity trading platform and the day-ahead auction are inextricably linked. If a shipper holds capacity that it does not nominate for a given day and does not sell that capacity to a third party, then the capacity will be compulsorily included in the auction. If the shipper sells the capacity before the auction, then they receive the proceeds of the sale. If, however, the capacity is sold through the auction, then the proceeds are retained by the service provider and the shipper receives nothing. These arrangements are designed to incentivise shippers to sell their contracted but unnominated capacity and thus contribute to the development of depth and liquidity in the market and a much more effective utilisation of the pipeline transmission infrastructure that we have available. The third of our projects, and these are really all about market transparency and information, are standardised operational transportation service agreements which will establish the contractual terms between service providers and shippers. At the moment, much of the contractual work in the gas industry is all bespoke. costs very large amounts to develop. This will provide for standardised agreements. The next one is a reporting framework for secondary capacity trades that provides for the publication of the price and other related information on all secondary trades. And finally, reducing some of the barriers to secondary capacity trading, which will include the adoption of a common gas day start time of 6 a.m. across the East Coast and a common nomination cut-off time for pipeline and compression facilities, which is going to be 3 o'clock in the afternoon Eastern Time. Now, this and the work in the arbitration and transparency work has all increased significantly market transparency. And the one other area that GMRG is going to be involved in is working with ACCC on further measures with respect to market transparency, gas market generally, not just for pipelines. Now, that's really an outline of the program, an extensive program, and one that should be effective in putting downward pressure on gas prices. Now, let me finish with a bit of homily. Attending conferences such as these, there's repeated references, generally very well deserved, to the ineffectiveness of the nation's energy policy processes. And of course that's a theme that was contained in the review of the governance of Australian energy markets, which I chaired a few years ago. Well, I don't want to overplay this particular point, but I'd like to suggest that what I've just described to you is actually a case study in how the energy policy processes have worked effectively. Firstly, we had expert reports from the ACCC and AEMC that identified issues which needed to be addressed. COAG Energy Council endorsed the reports quite quickly after they were presented and put in place arrangements to have the reforms delivered. The policy responses have been developed expeditiously with extensive consultation with and involvement of industry and other stakeholders. And I might make the point that Rosemary has been a member of the advisory panel that we have for the GMRG for interaction, etc., with jurisdictions and with the institutions, the ACCC, AEMC, AER, AEMO and ECA. Energy Council has unanimously voted in support of the reforms at every stage of their consideration. And from the time that the reports were presented by ACCC and AEMC, it will have taken a period of less than 3 years for all the reforms to be developed, put in place, implemented and working. So I'd like to say that there is some hope. We just have to really work at trying to make these policy processes much more effective. Thank you.